Hey, how's it going? So have you ever come across the problem that you go to buy a battery, or you actually buy a battery and it doesn't have the same connector that you use with all of your planes or quads or whatever it is, and either you don't buy the battery because of that, because you're scared to try and resolder the connector, or you have bought the battery and now you're not sure what to do because you think, ah crap, I can't use it. Would have to go and buy some rip-off adapter or something. No, it's really easy. I'll show you how to solder a connector onto any battery you want. It's really easy. I come into this problem with these new Mayhem batteries that I just picked up. They're running this red thing that looks kind of like an E-Flight connector, but red. I don't know. Look, I don't use these. They're crap. I've never even seen them before. I use XT60s. So I'm going to show you guys how to turn this into this. Easy peasy. Right, first off, you want to make sure you have your connector. Make sure you have the correct one for your batteries. Put that aside. You want to make sure you have a flux pen. Make sure you have some lead solder. Okay? And make sure you have some heat shrink. So I'm using this at the moment. Doesn't really matter what cutter, just as long as it fits really nice over your wire, and it's going to shrink down and be nice and form-fitting. And it always helps when you're soldering to have a temperature-controlled soldering iron. I'm currently using a Duratec temperature-controlled soldering iron, and I have it set to about 400 degrees. So to start off, you want to tin your surfaces on your connector. Just take that. So I'll put you in focus. There we are. It's using your flux pen. Now if your flux tip is dried out, just tap it a few times. It'll come to the tip of the pen. Just want to rub that where you want the solder to go. And you get your soldering iron, make sure you clean off any crap or excess solder that's on it. Put some nice fresh solder on it. Okay, you're just going to apply that gently to your surface, and then just add solder to the surface itself, not the iron. Okay, and actually apply it to the surface and the melted solder on it, not the iron tip, and it'll pull up really nice like that. And you can tell you've got a good solder if it's all shiny. If it goes like a cloudy color, it means you've done a cold solder and you want to turn up your heat and try again. Or maybe just hold the iron there for a little bit longer until we make sure all that solder is melted and heated up correctly. So I'm just going to do the other side now. Okay. So we're just going to take this and put it aside, and we're going to take our battery. Just going to choose which lead you want to do first. I'm just going to do the positive one first. I'm going to get a pair of side cutters. Okay, and we're going to put those as far up the lead as you possibly can. Bit tough, this one. There we go. Now, hot tip, cut one lead at a time. Don't go around cutting both leads off, because if you have two open exposed wires floating around and they touch, there's a chance you can hurt your battery, cause a fire. It's just not safe, okay? So always leave one connected, or put a bit of heat shrink over an exposed wire so there's no chance that they can connect to each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a pair of these, which I've forgotten the name, wire strippers. We're just going to strip a little bit of wire off, and you want to take off a little bit and expose it. And then we're going to pinch at the tip and then just roll the wire between our fingers like that. So you can get the wire nice and rolled up and in a neat little point like that. You don't want any bits of wire sticking out like crazy hair. You want it all nice and neat in one position. Makes for a neat solder, better heat transfer, and it's going to make your life easier. So same as before, we're just going to get our flux pen, and we're going to apply flux to our tip. Okay. We're going to pre-tin our tip. Just going to hold it against the side and then apply flux once again to the tip of the wire where the flux is flowing on. You don't want to apply it to the soldering iron itself, you want to apply it to the wet flux on the actual wire. That way it spreads properly and doesn't try and stick to the tip. Okay, now once you've got enough on there, stop. You can see once again it's a nice shiny finish, which means it heated up sufficiently. And then we're going to get our pre-tinned head. You're going to pick the positive side. Now make sure you check your polarity. Make sure positive goes to positive, negative goes to negative, okay? Otherwise you're in for a bad time. I'm going to get a bit of heat shrink that we have here. Cut it to length. Slide that right down the back. You want it far away from this tip because this is going to get really hot, and if it's too close it'll actually activate the heat shrink, and then you'll have it shrink down here and you'll have to desolder, rip the heat shrink off and reapply it and do it all over again. So make sure you slide it right down the end. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get that in position. I'm going to get my soldering iron. If you want, you can add another little dab of flux just to make sure that it's going to be really easy. We're going to pre-tin our tip again. A good amount of solder on there. It's not going to be too much, honestly, with the amount that we've just lightly tinned the wire and the pad. Just want to push it against that and hold it down and slide it forward so the thickest part of your tip is on the wire for maximum heat transfer. And just wait until that solder melts and joins together like that. Okay, so perfect. Now with the XT60 connectors, while that's still hot, you just want to slide that up, let it sit where it's warm for a second so it shrinks a little bit, and then push it in, because on the back of these there's actually a little gap for the heat shrink to slide into. So if you've just freshly soldered it and you just let it sit there for a second then push it, it'll actually shrink, slide straight in and make a really nice finish. Now you can either use your soldering iron or you can just grab a lighter. I'm just going to use a lighter. You just run that along the edge of your heat shrink. That's one wire done. Just going to do that with the same side. So we're going to do that with the negative now. So once again, just going to grab it. Just get our stripper. Strip off that excess insulation. Twist it up. All nice and neat. Get our flux pen. Apply a nice glob of flux onto there. Put in our little handy helper. Okay, nice dob of solder. Let that soak in and then apply your solder to the melted solder on the wire itself. Just take your time. It might take a second for the heat to transfer through depending on your soldering iron or what solder you're using, but patience will pay off. End up with a nice shiny finish like that. Okay, same deal. Grab your heat shrink, Just going to slide him on down past that before it has a chance to shrink. That's hot. I'm going to lock this into here again. And you just want to make sure that you can easily and gently push your wire into place and be able to hold it pretty much as far away as you possibly can, because this is going to get really hot. You don't want to be trying to use your fingers to hold it in place. Even a pair of pliers would work better. But if you have to use your fingers, just make sure that you can gently apply pressure and keep your work where it needs to be. It'll make your life a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to hold it there and wait for it to sink in. There it goes. Give it 2 more seconds, take it away, wait for it to cool, take your finger away. Sometimes with your bigger wire or your large amounts of solder, you might think, ah, cool, it's done. You'll take your finger away and the solder is still molten and will just pull away, and then you got to do it all over again. So whilst it's still hot, see, this is what I was talking about. Now this heat shrink has started to shrink beforehand. It's a little bit stiff, but I should be able to get it into position. Ooh, 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 ooh. There we go, got it into position. So that's that, easy to do. Gonna finish it off. Okay. So I hope this helped out anyone that's not sure on how to solder your battery connectors. It's really easy to do. Honestly, don't be intimidated by it. As long as you're smart about it and don't do something stupid like leave 2 exposed wires open, which is going to be a bad day. Just be smart and do your research on how to solder. Make sure you have the right tools and equipment, and easy. Anyway guys, have a good day. I hope I helped out anyone that was having any issues.